Welcome back, everybody. Today I'm going to be talking about the mysterious yet beautiful blue poppy. Joining me today is Meconopsis Lingholm and Meconopsis Bailey. Bailey won the award of Garden Merit quite a few years ago. Both great plants. Lingholm, they say, tends to be a little bit more perennial and last longer. Today, what I'm going to talk to you about with these blue poppies is how to start them, where to plant them, and just general maintenance. So starting your blue poppies, I either start them in a 4-inch pot or 50 cell trays. Now, I don't use seed starting mix, it gets too dry. And if your seedlings get too dry, just like most seedlings, they'll die. So I use a good compost-based soil. I either fill the 4-inch pot or the tray with the compost. I ferment down, put the seedlings on top, and then just lightly cover them with the compost. Now, the reason I use compost is it typically stays damp. It doesn't dry, doesn't get too wet, and it doesn't dry off. Now, if whatever mix you're using gets too wet, they could get what's called damping off, and your seedlings will die. So just keep your compost or whatever soil-based mix you use, keep it damp while the seedlings are growing. Now, when it looks like the seedlings are a good height, I'd say probably an inch or two, what I do is I dump out those plugs, or I dump them out of these pots. I split up the seedlings and I pot them up individually in the 4-inch pots. And then once the roots fill up this pot, I pot them up into these 5-inch pots right here. Now, once these roots develop here in these 5-inch pots, plant them where the soil stays damp, but not wet, because if the soil gets too wet, you could get root rot with these plants, and you will lose them. Plant them in dappled shade. I have heard people growing them in full sun, but looking at some pictures, it looks like they are getting some dappled shade because they're typically surrounded by larger plants. So keep that in mind. And they also don't like it too hot. So for you people that live in a very warm climate, unless you have a cooled greenhouse or it's climate controlled, I wouldn't consider growing these plants. I would probably just look at poppies. And speaking about poppies, they're related to poppies, but they are not poppies. They are part of the meconopsis family. So when you do plant them out, like I have them in a south-facing bed. I have them in a west-facing bed where the soil is damp. Now, in my south-facing bed, they are surrounded by some larger plants, so they do get that dappled shade. I did try planting them in a north-facing bed. Now, I didn't lose them because they had less sun. What I do believe I lost them to was the fact that the soil was a little bit too dry. So, as mentioned, just like I said numerous times before in this video, a soil that stays damp. Now, if you have, let's say, a pond or a stream, man-made or not, you probably can't see in this little video here, but these plants have little hairs on the leaves. And what those hairs are for is all that moisture and water getting kicked up in those streams. These plant hairs capture those little beads in the moisture, helping keep the plant cool. Because if you actually look at where this plant's from, they're from the Himalayas, and they're typically found along stream banks. So if you can or do have a stream, consider planting it there, especially if the soil is not dry or too wet. Now, general maintenance, what I do is my first year, I planted out. As much as you want to see that magnificent blue flower, you're going to want to prick out that flower And what that allows for this plant is for that root system to get established, allowing it to be more perennial and come back year after year. One thing I also like to do, as the plant gets larger, some of these bottom leaves will wilt. See it starting here a little bit, and they'll eventually die. Just for general maintenance, keep any slugs away, any pests or diseases. I just prick out the little leaves as they grow. Actually, you be doing that this one, and that plant's all right. And that's it. Thank you for joining me. If you liked what you saw, learned a lot, subscribe, and until next time, bye-bye.